Welcome back, everyone, to Beyond Success. On today's episode, I have Chrissie Chung with us, my beloved yoga teacher from many years ago. We met in India at Sampurna Yoga. So, Chrissy, it's very nice to have you here, and I'm just excited to listen to your voice and your words that have always been so soothing to me.
Thank you so much. It's such a privilege and an honor. So thank you for inviting me to be here. And it really is precious to catch up after so long.
It is. And Chrissy and I haven't spoken a lot in these however many years it's been. So this episode is quite spontaneous. What you hear here is literally what's happening in real time. I was thinking about our chat today and thinking back on when I first took your yoga class in India, and you are always so well spoken. It was your words that resonated with me so much in your classes. And there was one phrase that will stick with me forever, I think. And that was sometimes you have to chuck it in the fuck it bucket. I think about that often since then.
This is so great.
Yeah. But, it's been very useful to me in many moments. And I'm laughing. It sounds funny because at the same time you're so elegant in your words and the language that you choose, but it was this that stuck with me so much.
I was really like, what's it going to be? I'm so
Yeah.
happy it was that. I'm so happy. It's fantastic. I have to credit my dear meditation teacher and mentor, Michael King, who also credits one of our dear friends who actually offered it to him. So that's where I first heard it was on a training, and it was the same thing. It stuck with me. It was such a beautiful permission to let go of perfection, which, within that realm, whether it's practice as a student or whether you are moving into that space of wanting to facilitate and hold space for others, we have to let that go. And I just love the humor it brought. Like, what a relief. It's just, yeah. So I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased that's what stuck with you too.
And I think it's a beautiful reminder because I try to think about this a lot because I have a bit of a perfectionist side to me, a part that since I was a little girl, I think a part that was, be careful what you say, always look good, always say the right thing. And the older I get, the more I try to let myself be more imperfect and chuck it in the fuck it bucket.
I resonate. I resonate deeply.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about where you are in life currently, because I've seen a few snippets from a tiny house in Portugal, and I really want to know more about that because this is how I perceive it, at least. Nowadays, the luxury is to unplug from all this chaos and to move away from the cities and move towards our nature again, nature around us and nature within us. Something tells me that that's what you're on the path of doing right now, but tell me more.
Yes, so it's been a really a really wild year, let's say. It's always been a dream of mine. Also Portugal, not for everyone asks why. There's not a rational or intellectual kind of answer to that. It was just a feeling and a calling from certain experiences. And I think it was last year in March, I hosted a retreat in Portugal with a friend for the first time. And already on my flight over and then landing into Lisbon, there were certain feelings. It felt familiar. It felt like home in the way that India does for me too.
Mm.
Um, and then a whole series of events just started to happen. And I've experienced this a lot in life. This wasn't my plan. I even remember my mum, I think when I was young, mentioning you would be good at teaching or sharing wisdom in that way. And I was like, absolutely not. That's what, she did that, but that's not my path. And here I am. So life has always kind of nudged me in ways that seem not always to make sense. And yeah, this kind of living has been a dream. And it happened very quickly. It was almost choiceless, like I'm supposed to be here. And it's many things. There's actually, it's just really beautiful land. When I walked it, it reminded me of some of my favorite spaces back at home in the UK that I would go to, like you say, unplug, to really connect back to myself, to find moments of center and relief in not having to do or be anything, like just being in the presence of that space and being held by it. Um, and so this is where I am, in this tiny little place in Portugal that I'd never met before until I came to see the land. And there are some ruins that I'll be restoring into a forever home. So I'm in a tiny home in the interim so I can live on the land and start to plant and, restore the land, be with it. But eventually there will be a couple of yoga shalas, and the dream is to build the wellness center and the yoga school, and really a sanctuary to hold, the potency and the intimacy of practice, and to invite people into a space where they can experience that too, where they can just put the busyness to the side for one moment, not because it's irrelevant, that's part of life, but so that we can fill up ourselves enough to show up for that in a way that is full of integrity and authenticity. So yeah, that is what I'm doing, and it's as beautiful as it is almost scary. I was just thinking last night, I keep having these moments of like, oh my God, what am I doing? Because I've been nomadic. I've traveled for I was in India, then I'd go to East Asia, and I would move a lot.
Yeah.
And there was something reassuring about, in some degrees, the lack of commitment, that I could just begin again. And
Yeah.
this is, the first time, I think, really in my life, that I've said one place and roots, and being completely devoted into bringing to life whatever is being called forwards. I feel like I said, it's choiceless, and mm, trying as best as I can to be in service to that. But yeah, it's scary at the same time.
Yeah. When you're used to being nomadic and you're used to that, okay, I'll just create a new chapter sort of thing. And now you're faced with having to have that grit of, oh, obstacle. Okay, we have to ride that wave and stay on the surfboard. You surf as well, if I remember correctly, yeah?
Yes, yes.
So what are some other challenges that this project has brought up for you, and how are you navigating those?
Oh, there's so many. So, I mean, it's been really interesting for me because prior to this, I've spent like 10 years teaching yoga and moving through different spaces, and mm, feeling somewhat quite free and familiar with that world, very familiar by the end of the 10 years, which I'm still involved in here, and seeking to move here because I'm from the UK, and Brexit happened, so it wasn't as simple as just flying somewhere. There was a lot of legal due diligence and just putting on different hats,
Mm,
and having to do several things at once, which isn't my favorite. I really like to be still and in an empty space, and to feel spacious. And this year has felt not that. It's been very ungrounded, because so much change and transition has been happening. And one of the analogies that a dear friend and teacher of mine gave talked about, if you imagine a seed seeking to grow, and the way that it has to crack through its shell, and the roots come out and the shoot comes out, and all of that is destabilizing. So I've been contemplating this a lot. I felt very destabilized, and yeah, like trying to make sure I do enough to tend to myself so that I can show up for the spaces that I'm here to hold in integrity again. And the perfectionism thing that you speak to resonates so deeply, because I have that too. I want things to be a certain way. I want to give all of myself and more. And what I've had to learn this year is that sometimes that's not possible. I know what my best could be. I often want to go beyond it. But what I have is what is available right now. And being able to be honest about that then means I
mm,
can step the foot forwards. So that has been one of the places, like just battling with my own kind of inner demons about what is enough and wanting to give more. And
mm,
with that, perfectionism has been this tendency of mine to over effort, to try to overachieve more and more and more. And that's something I've, softly been working on. These things take time to refine, and they do become more subtle in the way that they continue to appear. You're like, I've sorted that, and then you're like, oh no, it's still there. And this year
Hmm.
is just revealed all of that, because I'm like, oh, I need space. There are certain things that felt like a deep yes when I said yes to them, that now I have to say no to honor what is alive and true. Um, so yeah, I think, the greatest challenge has been to witness myself in what has felt somewhat chaotic and messy, and that has asked me to surrender. I cannot control. I have to just be present and to listen deeply, constantly, to like what is being asked of me next, and just one tiny step at a time, and know that that's enough. So I think that for me is where I felt, yeah, the greatest tension and my feathers being ruffled.
And it's another paradox of life, isn't it? You're destabilizing yourself now internally to build stability around you externally. And then you'll, yeah, it's that balance. Um, so what is your biggest drive right now? What are the values that are driving this project? What's your why when you get up in the morning and you put all these hats on that aren't so fun always to have on, I imagine? Like the bureaucracy in Portugal, I can imagine is a nightmare.
Yeah, it's charming as well. That
Mm.
things I've had to consider that part of what drew me here was, it's slow. There's a lot of the energy and the frequency that reminds me of a Gonda, that slow kind of
Oh,
being with life, same as Tuscany. And there are other things that come with that too, in that the legal side and the bureaucracy is also slow.
yeah.
They appreciate their holidays, they appreciate their lunch break. They'll really honor that. If it rains, they're not going to work, and it's kind of, it also affords me that too. So I
No,
have to
you're
take that.
absolutely right in what you just said, that it's charming too. And yes, I'm talking to myself now because I live in Greece. I like to complain about the bureaucracy here, but at the same time, it's this slow pace that brought me here. So I shouldn't complain about that. If I want life to be slow, then everything has to be slow around it. And yes, it can be painful sometimes, but charming, I think, is such a great word to describe it.
It's the
Yeah,
reframe that's getting me through, because I totally, and I know you get it. And if you're in Greece, it's
yeah.
just like, it's part and parcel of it. So yeah, I really feel that. And I love that you've asked what is the why, because I think it's one of my favorite things. It's what drives me. Like, same with yoga. Like, the minute someone starts to uncover some of the why as an invitation, I'm like lit up. And so for me, my practice is my life, and it's brought so much. I felt for a while, when I was in different jobs that were satisfying in some ways, but still deeply unsatisfying, that I was constantly searching. It was like there was an emptiness inside of me. And yoga, I wasn't, when I first also went to Sampurna, it wasn't this idea that I'm going to teach this. I was just like, this has been the only thing that has brought me a deep sense of relief, where for a moment I felt like I'm okay. And so I wanted to explore more of it. And it's been such a wonderful invitation to like really feel life. And so my why is that what it has and continues to afford me, that just is ever deepening. I want to create space for the potentiality for others to tap into that too. And so the why for me behind practice is this promise towards deeper fulfillment and freedom. And when they speak of fulfillment, it is, not just the externalized things that can bring us joy. Yes, that, but and also more. And the fulfillment they speak to is having the opportunity to discover a deeper meaning about ourselves and about the world around us. And that for me was just like, yeah, I want to know the meaning of life. I don't want it to be peripheral. I want to understand the connection of things, and I want to show up for that. And the more I've turned towards that, the more free that I felt. So the freedom is just a natural outgrowth. And this is the why. I want to have a space that people can come into, where they feel welcome and they feel safe, and that they feel like there's a door that they can walk through to discover what that might look like and feel like for them, whether that's through the practices of yoga or simply walking on the land or growing and connecting with food, creating medicinal medicines from the herbs that are here, and to recognize that so much of that which we seek, it sounds cliche, but often the greatest cliches are there because they're true, is that it's right at our fingertips. It's already here, and it doesn't need to be so complicated, despite the mind often making it so.
Mm.
So that is what I'm feeling. And yeah, I like to just constantly remind myself of that each day, because there's the mundane to show up for, like you see, like the contracts and the things that I don't love, and the taxes, and understanding how I fit into the system here. But when I think of that and consider myself being in service to that and wanting to be devoted to the promise of that, it makes it more available, even in the
Mm.
challenge.
Yeah. So it's an extension of your practice, this project, in a way.
Yeah.
How else does your, not to say that, I mean, everyone has their own practice and it's very individual, so we're not advocating for any practice to look or feel a certain way, but just out of curiosity, what does your practice look like nowadays?
Yes. Very different to when we first met. Very different. You know, it's been such a journey, and a really beautiful one. Initially, for me, my practice was very physical. I needed that. I needed to remember I had a body. I needed to get back into the body. And then I hit a wall where um, I suddenly started to realize there was a disconnect between my movement and the philosophical backdrop and promise. Like they weren't meeting. I wasn't touching the spaces that yoga spoke to. I wasn't embodying or having an embodied experience of that. And it caused me to become curious and look in other places. And so that evolved into a more kind of hatha focused tantric worldview experience. But even that has evolved. Like that, the first time I experienced that, it was quite rigid, still in a devotional way, but it was very like we do it like this, and the breath is like this, and it felt quite disciplined,
Mm-hmm.
and that served me for a time too. And then there was this deep desire to soften, to I'm good at discipline, I'm good at the over effort, and actually where I struggle, my tapas is in less, in softening, in sensing what it is to receive. And that led me to the teachers in the school and the lineage that I currently study with. So there's Pandaji from the Himalayan Institute, and then there's Indu Aurora, who's very Ayurvedic inspired. And that for me allowed practice to become even more integrated into life, and much more about how do I nurture and nourish myself into fullness, so that practice is something that supports me in turning towards life more fully, not takes away, doesn't deplete, not another stick that I beat myself with. It's genuinely available and in every moment, because there were ways I practiced where it's like, well, I don't feel very well, so now it's not available, or I'm too busy traveling. That denies us. And one of my teachers says we've misunderstood, because it's available in every single breath. And so that's where it is now. It's yes, there are these tools and techniques that I can lean into that further support my functioning, but it's even in the moments of me witnessing nature or contemplating life or making the food or emptying the dishwasher. It's become almost like a deep devotion and offering of my life to life itself, so that I'm not closing off. So it's very subtle, and it's very energy based.
Mm. And I think you're describing another paradox, and that's that. I mean, generally, we've distanced ourselves from the wisdom of our bodies as a society in general. We know that. The paradox is that through yoga, we're called to return to that. But very often, especially in the beginning of the practice, because I resonate with you, when I did my first training, it was very, okay, study the asanas, know exactly when we do this pranayama, and now we do this, and we wake up at 6:30 and we do our neti pot and all that. So even that, well-intentioned, and also that discipline useful, like you in that moment. But again, it's the invitation to actually come back into your body and understand what your body needs. What does your practice look like? Not does what the practice look like. So that's a nice reminder from you.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for speaking to that, because I do think it's really important, because mm, we can be quite dogmatic or linear with our approach to life. And that also translates into spiritual practice. But ultimately, one person's medicine is another person's poison. And this is why I love my Ayurvedic teacher, because in every moment, it's not like a one practice suits all, nor is it a one practice will serve you forever. It's paying attention. Just like you said, your body has a language and a conversation, and the real invitation from our practice is for deeper interoception. Can I listen? Can I feel? Can I hear? We try and find words to speak to something that's so nuanced, it will never quite do it justice, but we try anyway, because it helps us to form a language within which to express and meet and connect with our experience and others. And so, yeah, there's this deep tending, and uh, also a return to trust that your body knows, that you can listen and follow, because there's so much noise outside of us, both in like the yoga classes that say it should be this way and it should like this and this is how you, so many shoulds. Same with like diet advice, lifestyle advice. There's so much noise,
Now
but
more than ever, especially
yeah,
in the wellness space.
yeah, and it's overwhelming, because then you're like, should
Mm.
I do this? Should I do that? And it's actually, it disconnects you from actually really feeling. And one of my favorite invitations, at least of the practice I'm discovering now, is what is the impulse? What are you feeling? How can you tend to that? How can you follow that tending? And then it's a continuous conversation. It doesn't stop. Um, and this beautiful process of constant refinement, in the same way that, nature is our greatest teacher. It's one of the tenets of Ayurveda and Tantra, that which is outside of you is inside of you. And were we to look at nature under a microscope, she's never still. She's constantly moving. And her movement is like this dance to seek balance and harmony, to seek that potentiality to thrive. And we're the same. And that's that conversation that we're having. We have to listen individually and then almost like reclaim the capacity to meet that, because we've been trained out of it. And that it takes courage, and it takes the willingness to be imperfect and clumsy at times.
Yes. And it's interesting to look at the history of mankind, because in the early stages of our existence, we were very deeply connected to ourselves and the tribe that we belong to, and our body and the seasons and the earth and the food. Somewhere along the line, some things happened, which, I mean, depending on which part of history you look at and which perspective, uh, different things happened with different effects. But something happened, and then we lost the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
And now we're in that area where we're trying to reclaim that wisdom that's there.
Yeah. Agreed. I think, and like, there's so many things we can point to. It's like, maybe it was this, maybe it was almost like a collective mess
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
of like
This is like a
disconnect and
perfect
disconnect.
storm.
Yeah. Yeah. And, mm, sometimes the why doesn't matter so much at that point, but this, like, for me now, what I love seeing is this, what feels like a collective longing to rediscover. And you're right that it was already there. We see that in the Eastern philosophies of Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine. We also have herbalism, like old folklore in the
Yeah,
Western side, the stories that were told, the medicines that were made.
yeah. What we
Uh,
call witches were
yes,
like
exactly.
healers.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly. They were all connected. And I even spent some time in Peru and learned from, very, very briefly, but there was a teacher from my teacher from the Quiero tradition. And what you see in all of them is that they're turning towards nature, and that we're part of nature. And how can we see that framework and that roadmap to understand ourselves? And it's there inside of us. I love when I'm having conversations with people. I'm like, okay, just think about the seasons. And as simple as right now, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, we're moving towards winter. How do you start to feel? What do you crave more of? I know that I need more sleep. I want warm foods. I want kind of stews and soups. And all of that is a applying of the opposite of what we're experiencing in the moment to find the balance. So it's written in our blueprint. And
Mm.
it's, again, like you say, it's just that learning to trust what has for some reason been trained out of us.
Yeah. And as women, we're even luckier because we have the seasons, and within the season, we have our cycle. And what do we crave before our period and after? And what we call premenstrual syndrome is actually just our body being very in tune with us and telling us exactly what it needs and to be more aware of our surroundings.
Yeah. It's such a gift. And I almost lament the fact that having an awareness of a real awareness of my cycle wasn't something I came to until I was in my 30s. And I think about all those years where I'm like, God, there was this practice, this beautiful invitation towards ritual and living in cycles and rhythms that's so rich. And again, in that listening, who am I in these phases? What is available to me? What naturally starts to arise? How can I understand myself at a deeper level? So yeah, such a gift to be a woman and experience something like that.
Yeah. And I think at the core of a lot of what I'm hearing with regards to your practice is the question, what am I needing in this moment? Which is a very hard question for a lot of people to know the answer to.
Completely. And it's like that, again, why it's don't worry if it's I don't know.
Mm.
Like, I love I don't know as an answer. It's so welcome. Then it's like, okay, how can I be more curious and how can I begin to play? One of my teachers says it's not about making the right decision or the right choice, but a step forwards. And in yoga, we call it neti neti. So not this, not this. As you take the step, it might be like, oh yeah, that worked, or it didn't. And you say, okay, not that thing. Um, and so I would even, the way I like to change is instead of need, I refine it more and say, what would nourish me the most in this moment? And
Mm.
the way I've been invited to understand nourishment is it's something that gives to you without depleting. It doesn't take away from you. It only fills you up. It only increases the way that you can be sustained and fulfilled. And if that's my contemplation, then I really have something to kind of chew upon and consider that allows me to feel like, is this coming from the intuitive knowing or is this coming from the impulsive craving and mind? And just to bring more awareness to the experience so that, again, there's that constant refinement of retuning to that.
Yeah. What might nourish me in this moment?
Yeah. What would nourish
Yeah.
me the most in this moment?
Mm. What
Yeah.
would nourish me the most in this moment? I like that. I feel like that could be very useful for people struggling with eating habits as well. To understand, is this an impulse because I'm trying to fill a void, or is this, even if it's sugar, sometimes you feel like sugar will nourish you in that moment, and that's fine, but be intentional about it.
100%. And I had this, food has been a real thing for me. I was reading a book called The Craving Mind by Judson Brewer for a meditation training I was doing. And he's really speaking to addiction to smoking in that.
Mm.
But it was actually looking at the impulse of addiction and the impulse of craving and where it came from. And I suddenly noticed in a moment, I was like, mine is food. When I have a big feeling, I reach for food to self-soothe. And it was
Yeah.
such an amazing moment because it just allowed awareness to arrive. I wasn't just doing it now, I was aware when it surfaced.
Mm.
And you're completely right. What would nourish me most doesn't mean that I'm always reaching for the leafy greens. It's what's alive in me. Why is there a craving if there is? And so sometimes I will still self-soothe with chocolate. I'm like, this is
Mm.
what's available. Or, with a Netflix binge. I'm like,
Mm.
I understand why this is happening, and this is all I
Mm.
have in me to reach for right now. So I'm going to
Mm.
say yes to this with an awareness of why. And
Mm.
then there's a natural pause. There's a natural break point where it's like, okay, now I'm ready to reach for the next thing that maybe has more nourishment available, but being truly honest about this is what I have right now. And I can say yes to it, understanding what is happening inside of me and why the choice is here. And that has agency behind it, that has power, um, that slowly shifts. There's this amazing tantric teacher. She passed, I think, last year, or I don't know time anymore, maybe the year before, Sally Kempton. And she has a book called Meditation for the Love of It, which is so fantastic because it's just human. And in it, she has this quote that really stuck with me where she says, and I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of the same awareness that catches the habit that makes you want to kick yourself across the room is the awareness that has the power to transform it. And I was just like, that's it. Awareness is everything. The moment you turn the light of awareness towards the thing, the transformation is already happening. But the more we can tend to it, maybe the more easeful it can be. And I just found that such a relief. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that contemplation can be used in so many ways. What would nourish me most in this moment?
Yes. And the awareness is a huge part of the foundation to that. And for me, two values that are coming up constantly in my work are curiosity and compassion. So there's
Mm,
one training I'm doing now called compassionate inquiry, and it's amazing to witness how they're doing it. It's simply staying with the curiosity of the parts of us that we all have and leaning into the compassion for them and understanding. There's another wonderful book called No Bad Parts. I don't know
mm,
if you've read it, but it dives into all these parts that we all have, like the perfectionist part and so on, and that they're none of them are bad. They're all trying to protect us in their own way. Um, like even the part that's craving that chocolate and wants to soothe with sugar is trying to give you comfort. So the
exactly.
more we can have that awareness with the curiosity and the compassion, that's where I think healing comes. Finding your wholeness, literally finding all your parts and hugging them and finding wholeness and healing through that.
Absolutely. Yeah, like no part of you is denied. And I
Yeah,
think it's
exactly.
especially important because we're quite happy to embrace the parts of us that we love, or we're like, that's kind of nice. But
Yeah.
it's really the work in the parts of myself that I would rather not see and I would definitely hope others wouldn't see. They're
Yeah.
actually the ones that they really need that. They need the, like
Yeah.
you say, like what is the need that's not being met that would cause this to come forwards?
Yeah.
And yeah, compassionate inquiry. Gabor Mate has a,
That's
yeah,
his. It's his.
ah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so beautiful. No,
Yes.
really, like I've not, I mean, I've witnessed many humans that I think are profound, but there's something in the way, I think was it The Wisdom of Trauma, his film?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, the way he held space so that
I know.
pain and
Yeah.
suffering is just held in the safety of acceptance. And
Mhm.
then there's the space to be like, okay, and then this, yes, this can be here. And only in welcoming that this is here can I see what might be waiting for me forwards, but not at the denial of it. Um,
Mhm.
so I love that. I love that that's what you're kind of sinking into right now. I think it's so important.
Yeah, it really, really speaks to me, and witnessing how he works with people is just it's mind-blowing because he doesn't give it to them. He leads them in the span of like 45 minutes. It's crazy. He leads them to A, get to know their parts, B, have compassion for them, and C, um give them a sort of a new role to take on, which is much better suited to them, or just being aware and having compassion. For some people, that takes years, and to see him facilitate that in 40 minutes is really mind-blowing. So yeah.
Yeah, and the element
Um,
of inquiry. I like that
yes,
he's always asking questions so that they can explore themselves rather than telling them. It's
exactly.
this there's so much,
Yes.
it's empowering.
Yes, exactly. Because that's one of his core values in this approach is everyone has the self-healing ability. No one is really a healer, I think. They just facilitate the innate healing that each and every one of us have inside of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really liked what you said before. You like the answer, I don't know. And I think we need more of this in life because there are so many experts nowadays that have the answers. But even someone like Gabor Mate, who is, in my eyes, a master and an expert, even he has this demeanor of, what does it mean for you? And I think it's a good answer to give sometimes, I don't know. And it's let's invite all of us to really wonder, what does it feel like to say I don't know? Is it acceptable to say I don't know? Does it mean something else if I don't know? So I think that's a nice invitation. What's our
Yeah.
what's our relationship with the answer I don't know?
Yeah, and to not feel it as a failure. I think
Yes.
I've seen
Yeah.
a lot of people close down when, if there's inquiry or question, it's like, oh, I don't know, but to actually feel a sense of empowerment through that, because it's such a, the I don't know we can think of it as an emptiness that's lacking, or, and this is how I personally experience it, it's an emptiness of invitation and potentiality. Like, then I can lean it. Can I live in the question and continue to explore until something naturally wants to arise? Because I think that is life. In the same way that I love Joe Dispenza when he talks about, if you're moving towards something new, you have to be okay with the not knowing, because if you already knew, you'd be living it. And so the not knowing is almost like the preface before expansion.
Mm.
And so I kind of, I always love a reframe. I like it in that respect of like, how can it open me? How can it open
Yeah.
me to more?
Yeah. So you're a student of Ayurveda a lot as well. What can you share about that world that might be useful to someone listening to this that doesn't know
Mm,
anything about it?
okay. So, um, gosh, it's so much. What I will say is that there is a complexity to it that is worth leaning into, because what it opens up is the simplicity to which you can apply the teachings. There are two main tenets that are really useful to understand. One of them is that the macrocosm is the microcosm. So the world, what the world is made up of, I'm also made up of. And what I'm made up of, I can see in the world. And they use that through the five elements. Um, and the other tenet that's really useful is that they say like attracts like and opposites balance. So the way I can tend to myself is, for example, and the physical, the mental, the emotional, they're different layers. So you might need different things in the way that you tend to yourself.
Mm.
But let's say, for example, I'm experiencing like a flu, I have a cold, there's like gunkiness. I can see that in those qualities and then sense that what I'm going to apply to help balance my body is the opposite. So that's the simplicity within which it can work. The complexity is, if you are interested, what I would say is go beyond the dosha. We tend to simplify in a way that limits the experience. So we're like, everything is pitta, vata, kapha. But actually, behind the dosha are the elements. So pitta is fire and water, kapha is water and earth, vata is air and ether. Within each of the elements are components that the world is made up of, which are like 10 opposite qualities. The reason this becomes interesting is because when you can tune into those qualities, you also understand the opposite that you can apply to balance. So that's the complexity that I encourage everyone to lean into. Go behind the dosha, go behind the element into the qualities that make them.
Mm-hmm.
And then at your fingertips, you have everything you need to seek balance and harmony.
Mm.
Oh, I've noticed in, for example, my body, there's lots of popping and cracking and dryness. Okay, well, the opposite would be to lubricate that, whether that's in lubricating movement or whether that's my skin is dry, so I'm going to apply oil and do something like abhyanga. So it's it's just a really beautiful system of essential self-care that asks you to be present to what's alive so that you can take care of yourself.
Mm.
One of the meanings or the translations of the word for the Ayurvedic doctor is not simply doctor, it's the one who imparts wisdom. So the idea is that they're empowering you to understand yourself, how to take care of yourself so that you can thrive.
Like inquiry.
Exactly. Exactly. It is. It's constant, compassionate inquiry like, oh, this is alive. That's okay that this is here. How would I like to tend to that?
Yeah. What might nourish me the most?
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's lovely to see how all these different fields overlap because in a way, that's true of everything. It can be so complex and so nuanced, but at the end of the day, the more you zoom out, it's actually so simple.
Yeah. And it makes me think about how, right now for you, compassion and curiosity are things that are live. And that's the same, right? Like, curiosity is what allows us to look at nuance, to understand that the world is completely nuanced, and to welcome that so that then we can move forwards from that rather than trying to create a box to fit into, which may feel okay at a certain point, but then, it's like wearing a tight shoe, you need to take it off. So,
Mm.
Yeah, curiosity always, and the nuance that will give you access to tending to yourself in very simple yet meaningful and impactful ways.
Mm. So if you could go back, let's say 10 years and meet Chrissy 10 years ago, what wisdom would you share with her?
Oh man. So 10 years ago would be me taking my first teacher training. Um, just beyond 10 years, but I'll go back to that point where it was really hard to make the decision sometimes, to take a leap of faith. But I would tell her to trust the gut feeling with wild abandon, to know that the heart knows, and to stop trying so hard.
Mm. And do you feel successful today in your life? And what does success look like to you?
It's such a big question because I feel like it involves unpacking what the word means to an individual.
Hmm.
And I do feel, for me, success is about fulfillment. I tried the meaning of success where it's like I'll get the job and the promotion and tick the boxes that I've been told to tick in order to experience happiness, which will work for some. We all need something different.
Yeah.
What joy means to someone means something completely different to another. Um, but I feel success to me has been about the fulfillment and the experience of joy and rediscovering, despite the challenge and despite, I mean, when we look at the world today, it feels like it's on fire. And that I can hold, you've mentioned paradox a lot in this, and like this is the journey of yoga. When we look at the tenets on asana, the promise is to be free from the pairs of opposites, to live in paradox without being thrown by it. Now, I'm not going to say I'm there, I'm still thrown in moments, but the capacity to hold it all, to
Mm.
be able to hold it and still want to step forwards, to see challenge and understand that this life is still, amongst so much suffering, there is incredible beauty. That is the journey that I'm on. And so I do feel that because what I feel is an ever deepening experience of appreciation, of trust, of love, like at the core of everything. I did this amazing meditation practice with Tracy Stanley. She's a great teacher. And it was contemplating death. And it basically takes you to your core. And my core was just love. Like I want to be here to experience deeply what love is and to be in devotion to that. And I feel like life is opening up those opportunities for me. I'm experiencing love at a deeper level. I'm also experiencing all the ways I limit myself from that, and I have to look at those patterns. Um, but yeah, life is rich and it's sweet, and not through complexity. Like it gets more and more simple, and it's in those simple moments in between that it's like I'm remembering something very rich.
Yeah. And I love the parallel you drew to asana. So for those listening that don't know, asana is the pose in the yoga practice. And you said that's the promise of asana. Can you expand on that a little bit? What's the promise of the pose? Because I think people hear yoga nowadays and they think, okay, yoga is being flexible, and I'm not flexible enough to do yoga, and I need to I need to uh master this pose and this inversion. So how would you address that?
Yes, such a good question. It's actually one of the things I'm so passionate about. Um, so the teachings that I lean into are from the Yoga Sutra by Patanjali. So he's this great sage and seer who basically sought to take all of the wisdom of yoga from the different Vedas and concretize them into one place. And it's hard when we read them because they're quite cryptic. It's like a very condensed pearl of wisdom that leads to the next, to the next. But within that text, we're given the whole picture of what yoga is and isn't, how we practice it, and what it will lead us towards. And there are 196 pearls of those wisdom, and within it, asana is only mentioned 4 times. Once is in a list. 3 times is actually what asana is, how we practice it, and what it will lead us to. And so we very often, if you do delve into yoga, you'll hear stiram sukham asanam, and we talk about stability and comfort. But as is the way with, English is a very linear language, and our minds can work in a very linear way. We approach it so, but it's at least my experience. The way I first approach it was like, I'm going to get deeper and deeper, and to advance, the pose is going to be more complex and ask for more of my flexibility or strength. And the stability and comfort is going to be me forcing stillness and remaining there and pretending that I'm comfortable. But this is not the case. What they invite us into is that this foundation of comfort is what gives rise to the feeling and the texture and the experience of stability and stillness. It's this training of meeting discomfort comfortably, not going over the edge, not forcing. There's an effortlessness to it. So the shapes that we take aren't an outward thing. They're an inner experience that is invited. They're also impacting the energy body in a very specific way. And what we're trying to do, so one of the meanings of asana is seat. The mind is taking a seat within the body, and in a way where we can remain. Sukha means sweetness, but another meaning is a good place. The mind is in a good place, even in this experience. And when it's in a good place, what it means is that I can be in this experience without over-efforting. There's an effortlessness to my effort. It's like the distinguishing or comparing the difference between tension and activation. Effortless effort is I'm in the pose and there's an activation, an enlivenment to the experience of being here. Whereas over-efforting, which we often do when we first come to asana, is a tension. And the tension closes off the subtlety of my inner experience. The reason this becomes important, so the foundation of comfort and stability so my mind can rest, is that the effortlessness gives rise to inner awareness. I'm interoception. I'm starting to explore the inner space. I'm noticing the sensations of the body, the way the breath meets that, the way the mind is experiencing this, the thoughts that rise and fall, and the spaces between. And that's what it's leading to us to. Then what we have access to is the witness, awareness. I can experience awareness and how it is different to the stories around it or the rising and falling of sensation. And it's that witnessing. Another term we use for it in yoga is purusha, which means the one who is always at rest in the city of the body, or who dwells in the city of the body. That witnessing component, the more we taste the flavor of that which witnesses, is what frees us from the experiences of I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm happy, I'm sad. Not that we don't experience them, but we don't have to be so identified. And this is the acknowledging of this is alive in my body right now. What is it trying to teach me, rather than I am this? Does that make sense?
So much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I know this is something you explore. Like I was looking at your method, the whole method. It's just stunning because it's using all the elements to truly be in conversation with all these capacities that we've been given. We've been given a body to feel. We've been given the senses to receive the experience inwardly, to notice what's at play, and then to choose how to express ourselves back. So that's the real promise of asana. It's not the shape or pushing ourselves towards different shapes. It's the inner experience. And this promise is available in every moment. It's also then like, what would it be like to take that off the mat and into my life? And what I love about this is you realize then it's available to all. This is also one of the tenets of the school that I study from. Include all, exclude none. Love all, hate none. And so it's not a question of I'm not flexible, I'm not strong enough. These promises are things that could be alive as you lie down, as you stand up. It's not about the shape, but more of an inner feeling you're choosing to develop, a state, a way of being that then is always available to you, especially in the moments of challenge.
Yeah. And that reminds me a lot of you saying meet discomfort comfortably. Hearing you talk about this and this other paradox that we're discussing now, It reminds me of the difference between strength and power, and how when we feel like we have to be strong, it's actually it's this force that's the opposite of strength. But when we lean into our power, it's it's the knowing that whatever comes up, I have the power to sit with it and be with it and hold it, rather than I mustn't say the wrong thing, or I mustn't look vulnerable or feel vulnerable, or I must show power, I must show strength. I mean, so it reminds me a lot of this comparison. But I really like that. And I really wish that more people will experience this through their yoga practice, that it's not about the asana. It's not about, I mean, it is, but it's not about what the pose looks like or how you're doing it or meeting a certain shape, or it's not even about, okay, now I'm uncomfortable, but I need to feel comfortable, because it's, like you said, it's not even about that. It's finding, like you said, meeting the discomfort comfortably, and that continuous dynamic conversation with all our parts that the
Yeah.
practice so beautifully invites us to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you're um we're constantly at play, right? So this differentiation, what is strength, what is power? When I'm hearing your words, the shift from one to the other is, one felt like there's tension, I'm trying really
Mm.
hard, and the
Mm.
other felt like tensionlessness. It's not that
Yeah.
action isn't available, but there's an awareness that's available as to, is there action to take? Is there a stepping back to listen and receive?
Mm.
Um, and again, this is what the asana is teaching us. Like, what is the difference between the two? And the idea of meeting discomfort comfortably is that an innate aspect of the soul is that we want to expand beyond what we know.
Yeah.
And expansion means there has to be some form of limitation. Like, that's just part of life. And we're just edging
Yes.
and edging. The comfortably means that I can meet what is challenging with awareness available. And
Mm.
we know the difference. Like, and I'm not saying it's available all the time. Luckily, my practice is something that reminds me, like, this year has been a beautiful example for me where I'm like, I have felt so much overwhelm in moments where I'm like, what is happening? And then I
Yeah.
can remember, like, this is not where I'm going to make good decisions. This is where I need to regulate. This is where I need to come back to myself
Mm.
and understand that this discomfort is here. The mind is now in a place where it's like it's making a mountain probably, but I can regulate so that I can be with the discomfort comfortably. Like, I can have
Mm.
more of myself available. Um, so yeah, I hope to, because it took a while for me to be able to access this through practice. Um, and I think, one of the things that I feel is really important is the way that we integrate the philosophy into the physical practice. If we're going to call it yoga, we need the philosophical backdrop
Mm.
to make that available. And that's in any way that you practice. So absolutely not dogmatic about the way that you practice, because everyone needs something different, but understanding the promise behind it so that you can orient yourself towards that, because that is the nourishment.
Yeah.
And then it makes it available to all to have the agency of, like, this is right for me right now. This is what it points me towards,
Mm.
is important.
Yeah. So, how can someone, I'm going to share all your social media handles in the notes, but how can someone work with you nowadays? How
Mm.
can people connect with you?
Mm. So I'm predominantly online as I've just moved country. So a lot of what I do is one-to-one work. So I do a lot of mentorship journeys, whether that's more personal in terms of how you want to start experiencing life with more fulfillment, with more freedom, with a deeper kind of connection to who you are at the core. And they are 6-month journeys. I also work with teachers or facilitators who just want more kind of like strategy and connection to their why, and how they can kind of begin to express that with trust, with
Hmm.
joy, with a freedom to play.
Finding
Um,
their teacher's voice. I remember you talking about that a lot in our
yeah,
training.
yeah, and like to really feel fulfilled by what they're doing. I think there's a lot of talk about imposter syndrome and doubt, and I think an important part of that journey is like, what lights you up? Why are you practicing? It's not always easy to practice. So I really love to be that space for someone to rediscover,
Mm.
and then to feel the desire and the impulse and the trust to put that out. So I have those. I do retreats through the year and trainings. So like lots of kind of 50-hour trainings on the go. They're all on the website. And I also have a side business with an amazing friend and incredible teacher called Be Nourished. And like we've been speaking about the nourishment, it's all connected to that. It kind of it's breath focused, meditation, Shavasana and Yoga Nidra. So it's all about regulation. Both of us have the tendency to over effort and deplete ourselves. So it's
Yeah.
born out of our own struggle. Um, we also have some courses and retreats kind of coming up. So they're the main things for now. And then we'll see.
Amazing. I look forward to seeing the space that you're bringing into life as well.
Thank you. Yes, it will take
Yeah.
time. Things here move slowly. So
Yes, but it will be
Mhm.
so worth it.
Totally. Yeah, we can't wait. It will
Yeah.
be an act of devotion for the next handful of years and beyond.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you have a very good why, so that keeps you going.
Thank you, my love.
Yeah. It's been so lovely talking to you, Chrissy, after all these years. It's been really nice to hear your voice again, and I just always resonate so much with everything you say. So thank you for continuing teaching, even from afar. I feel like I'm still learning from you. So thank you so much for that. And I hope to see you in person again sometime soon.
I would absolutely love that. And thank you. Thank you for this space. Thank you for your insightful questions and your wisdom that has come through, even simply from a question. It's been a real privilege and an honor, and I can't wait to see you in person. I would love that so
Yes.
much.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and see you soon.